Hi everyone, welcome to a collaborative YouTube hop with Crafty Meraki and Lindy's gang. I have a fun mixed media card featuring lots of products from Crafty Meraki and of course Lindy's magical powders. It's been a minute since I've made a mixed media card and this was just so much fun. I started off by creating a stencil using Crafty Meraki's Craft Around die. My stencil is simply a heavyweight cardstock. I use Neenah Classic Crest 110 pounds. A palette knife is used to apply texture paste to Canson XL watercolor paper. I didn't have any white paste. I'm using gray, but after the powders go on, it won't make any difference whatsoever. The texture paste is spread across the entire stencil, and then I go back afterwards and just smooth it out, removing any of the excess. The texture paste does not take long to dry. I didn't actually time it, so I can't say for sure, so I'm not going to put a number on it. To get ready for applying the powders, I'm going to spritz both the back and the front of the panel well with water. This is a little trick that allows the panel to lay flat while I'm working on it and also will hold it flat as it dries. I'll be working with 4 of Lindy's magical shakers. First applied London Summer Sage and now I'm applying Butter the Bread Blue, such cute names. I'm working in diagonal corners, applying the powder in both corners and then starting to work towards the middle. And now I'm applying Lizzie's Cup of Tea Teal. And my base layer is finished up by filling in all of the empty spaces with Darcy in Denim. The powder is not completely dissolved, so I'm going to go in and apply just some very light spurts of water. And then I'll use a very wet paintbrush to help move some of the color around to create blends. I'm careful as I do this because I still want to maintain some of the distinctness of each of the 4 colors that were applied. Then I'll go in with each of the 4 shakers and reapply the powder, trying to get it more or less in the same place that it was applied initially to help intensify the color. After each application of powder, I'll go back in with that very wet paintbrush and just help dissolve any of the powder that is sitting on top. As the panel dries, it will lighten, so I really want to get as intense color as I possibly can. And unlike the texture paste, this does take quite a while to dry. I don't move it from my work surface. I leave it in place. That will help ensure that as it dries, it remains flat. This panel is going to be finished off simply with a die cut sentiment and some leafy sprigs. I have another panel of Canson XL watercolor paper. I've sprayed the top corner with Lindy's Moon Shadow Mist, and then the entire panel is sprinkled with London Summer Sage. Ensure all of the powder is dissolved, I follow up with some light spritzes of water. Top of the panel is looking a little bit washed out, so I'm adding some additional powder and the Moon Shadow Mist. I didn't worry about this panel lying flat because it's going to be die cut, but you can see what happens when water is not added to the other side. But I'll give it a hand with some heat from the heat tool, and that will help it lie sort of flat so that it's easier to lay out my dies. I'm first going to die cut the panel using the dies from the Spade Meraki Paradise die set. After they're die cut, I'll use a blending brush and Distress Oxide ink Chep Sapphire and just edge these die cuts with that deep blue. To apply the ink just to the edge, the brush is placed on the work surface and then it is pulled up to the die cut. This dark blue adds some really nice definition to these gorgeous vertical die cuts. I've been on a floating sentiment kick lately, and so here I go again. Black sheet foam is covered with double-sided adhesive, and then I'll use the small shadow die from Meraki Moments Tugs to die cut it. This sentiment was die cut from the panel that we just prepared with the spray and powder. To easily align the letters to the foam ones, the foam letters have not been released from the excess foam. With the double-sided adhesive on the foam, the cardstock letters can be aligned easily to the foam ones. Foam die cut letters will be slightly depressed. This makes it really easy to line them up. If I had been using liquid adhesive, the letters would have had to have dried completely so that they would not slip out of alignment. But with the double-sided adhesive, they can be removed immediately. Another small piece of black sheet foam has been covered with the double-sided adhesive, and this time I'm going to use the small shadow die to cut it. I have a panel of vellum that I'm going to set on top of this shadow die cut. Using this dry adhesive will ensure that it does not cause the vellum to wrinkle. I really should have put the double-sided adhesive not only on the top of the foam but on the underside so that I could just go ahead and put them right on top of my vellum paper. But I didn't. So good thing there's another option, and that's Tombow glue. After the liquid adhesive is applied to the foam-backed letters, they're set aside to dry completely. When this adhesive dries, it is tacky. It is no longer wet, and it is perfect to use on vellum. And while I'm waiting for that adhesive to dry, I'm going to continue with my card. I'll use regular adhesive on the back of the foam die cut that has been attached to the vellum panel. Of course, the vellum is beautifully translucent, so it is easy to line up the sentiment side to side on the top half of the card. Of course, my vellum panel is now raised, so I flip it over on my guillotine and line up the edge of the panel with the blade to remove the excess vellum. My panel, which is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, is being adhered to a black card base that is A2 sized. The Tombow adhesive is now dry so the letters can be aligned to the shadow die cut. Shadow die cut is just a little bit larger than the letters, and so the result is this pretty soft black edging around the sentiment. The tips of the foliage were adhered directly to the letters. As each of the 3 stems were positioned, I made sure that the stems would meet at the bottom of the card. Gave the adhesive just a little bit of time to dry. I could then safely lift up each of the stems and pop a couple of small foam squares underneath those little leafy areas. The leafy stems will sweep down from the double foam on the sentiment, the single foam height on the leafy area of the lower part of the stem, and then finished off with liquid adhesive at the base. When the adhesive is completely dry, the stems are trimmed off. The card is embellished with some aqua confetti. Where the confetti will sit directly on the cardstock, I use liquid adhesive. But for the confetti that is on the vellum, I use small glue dots. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I love Nouveau Crystal Drops Morning Dew. All of the confetti is topped up. It looks cloudy right now, but when it dries, it is crystal clear, leaving a jewel-like effect. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for joining me. For some great inspiration, hop along with us. The link for this collaborative hop playlist is in the description below. Oh, and did I mention there are some great prizes? Leave a comment. I'm sending lots of positive energy and luck your way.